Hello out there. Hello. I'm going to give a few minutes for some people to start joining in. Hello. I hope everybody's having a fabulous weekend. It rained just for a second here, so it's been pretty decent here. Hello. Yes, we are very good. Bronx has been feeling much better, so that is good. He is currently looking out the window for friends. I have a couple things so we're going to do it a little bit different today. I'll still give a couple minutes for some people to join in here, but we're going to do it a little bit different this time. Instead of opening all the documents to see if it's something we want to talk about or not, I went through them and I went through all the way up until 200 pages. Well, not pages, but 200 files. So I have them all. We're going to do it in order still, but I have it ready so we don't have to open every single document. Hello, Ray. I hope you are doing well today. So yeah, I have it all sorted out so we can just open the ones that are super important. Anything that has any little bit of information, I am going to open them and we're going to go through them just because I don't want to miss anything. But the little files that are like, I got a thumb drive and I put it into evidence, we don't, because it doesn't say what's on the thumb drive. It doesn't give us any information. So we're going to skip those types of files, just the really important ones. And then I have a couple of points I want to make in some of them that are pretty good to know, actually. So when we get to that, I will go ahead and talk about them. I'll just go ahead and start, just so we don't waste any time here, because there is so much to go through, you guys. Ay. All right. So I've got the first one up here. Last time we went through 18 files and that was it. That's all we got through. And it was like almost 2 hours worth of reading. So we're not going to do that this time. We're going to start where we left off. We left off on 18. So we'll start with 19. And a couple of these initials you guys might have to help me with if you know. Hey, James. Hey, stop that right now. Brandon, Ray, Bianca, of course, our favorite Bianca. Yes, hit that like button on the way in, please. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. All right, so we left off with 18, so we will start on 19 this time. And again, I'm not opening every document, just the ones that have super importance in them. And then I want to talk about a couple of things because I find them very interesting. This one says, it's from Rosinski, dated the 16th of November. Sometimes the dates on these matter. On 11/16, I spoke with KN at the substation on University of Idaho campus. I asked Kay if she had any special relationships with any of the victims, and Kay said that she was really good friends with Xana Kernodle and that they met freshman year. Kay said she was also close friends with Kaylee and met her freshman year during recruitment. Kay said she knew Kaylee the best. I asked Kay if Kaylee hung out or associated with anyone with violent tendencies. Kay said no and expressed she was confused about the incident because of what she saw on the news. Kay said Kaylee mainly stuck together with her roommates Xana, Bethany, Maddie, and Dylan. Kay said that Kaylee also hung out with the King girls, which were JT, it's either Josie or Jenna, NF, not sure, BD, and AV. I asked Kay if Kaylee was involved in using illegal substances, and Kay said, just coke, probably. I asked Kay if she saw Kaylee doing cocaine, and Kay, I don't think I could say that word. Kay said no, but she knew Xana was pretty into it. And as we know from before, it was Xana's room that had the blue powdery substance and the rolled up $2 bill in it. Detective Dean asked if Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend was into coke at all, and Kay said she did not know. She said she didn't know Ethan that well. Detective asked if drugs were being sold from the house or if the rugs were more used for parties. Kay said they were used but not sold. Dean asked if there were large quantities of rugs at the house or if the house was known as a rug house, and Kay said no. I asked Kay if Kaylee ever mentioned about having a stalker or having concerns about anyone, and Kay said no. Kay also said Kaylee never mentioned anything to the girls. Kay asked if we saw the Twitch stream. I asked Kay what she saw on the stream, and she mentioned there were 2 guys. I asked Kay if she recognized the 2 guys, and Kay said she did not. Kay said her friend, PC, which I think is Phoebe, but I'm not sure. But I do think it's Phoebe, and G were at the grub truck and saw Kaylee and Maddie. Kay said P mentioned that the 2 males were being weird. I asked Kay if she or anyone recognized anyone from the grub truck stream, and Kay said no. I asked Kay if she was familiar with the fraternity members of whatever, and she said yes. One second, I got to sniff. Okay, sorry. I asked Kay if there was anything mentioned why the males were being labeled as weird, and Kay said she thought one of the males nudged the other male like, oh, those are your girls, go and get them. Kay said that P would be worth talking to because she was there during that time. I asked Kay if P spoke with Kaylee, and Kay said she might have said hi, but wasn't sure. Kay also mentioned that ZM hung out with Kaylee and Maddie all night at the corner club. I asked Kay if any of the victims had any issues with anyone, and Kay said that Kaylee was unproblematic and peaceful. Kay said she can't imagine someone with violent tendencies around her. Kay said she felt the same way about Maddie. Kay said if anything, maybe Ethan and Xana. I asked if Ethan and Xana associated with violent people. Kay said this because Kay said that Xana and Ethan were more outgoing and hung out with different friend groups. Dean asked if Kaylee or Maddie recently had a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. Kay said Kaylee dated a guy named Jack DeCour, for a couple of years, and Kaylee and Jack were high school sweethearts. Kay said Jack was a really nice person. Kay said she spoke to Kaylee a couple days before the incident, and Kaylee said once she graduated, she was looking for an apartment in Texas. Kay said Kaylee met a guy from Texas that is already living in Texas, and they were going to be roommates. Weird. It sounds like Kaylee was juggling maybe a couple of different guys, or talking to or dating or hooking up with a couple of different men. And now we hear that Kaylee met a guy from Texas and they were going to be roommates. I would never be roommates with somebody that I just met in a whole different state. But okay. I asked Kay if Kaylee and Jay were still together when Kaylee mentioned that to her, and Kay said no, that they were already broken up. Kay said that Jay mentioned that Kaylee attempted to call Jay around 3 o'clock in the morning asking if he was up. Kay said she didn't think that Jack replied to Kaylee because he thought it was some type of booty call. So that's interesting to me, because Jack said to everybody else that he was sleeping and he just let it ring. Hey, Ro. Hey, Fizzy. Raphael Penguin. That's a cute name. So as far as Jack said to the detectives, he said he was sleeping. Well, now we're just finding out he wasn't sleeping. He was purposely ignoring her calls because he thought it was a booty call, or at least that's what he said to this person. A little bit interesting. Kay said she thought they found out after people were asking Jack if he knew anything about what happened. Detective Dean asked if Maddie had a boyfriend, and Kay said yes, and they call him, I think his last name is Schneider or something close, and said she thought his first name was Jake. Kay said they're still together. Kay said she does not think they had any problems, and Jake was a good guy. Detective Dean asked what he looked like, and Kay said Jake was short, maybe 5'7", and balding. Kay said he had brown hair and was skinny. Kay thought he lived in Coeur d'Alene. Kay said, Bethany was Maddie's little. Kay said Kaylee and Madison were the closest out of all the roommates. Dean asked if Dee had a boyfriend, Dylan had a boyfriend, and Kay said yes. Kay said his name is Quinn and lived in Boise. Kay said that Quinn was nice and hardworking. She said that Quinn had epilepsy and was not a violent person. Kay said she was not aware of any issues between roommates, and I asked if Kaylee hung out with any other males. Kay said Kaylee was talking to a guy named MB, who was a member of blank. Kay said they had a sexual relationship and would hook up here and there. Kay described M to be over 6 feet, brunette, and medium build. Kay said he was serving as vice president to one of the frats. I asked Kay if there was anyone else Kaylee spent time with, and Kay said no, unless Kaylee met someone at the bar that night. So she just, okay. I'm not saying anything. Kay did not know if Kaylee met anyone in particular, but heard a male got kicked out for being creepy towards Maddie. Kay said J or Z could probably have more information because they were also at the bar. 1 second, guys. I'm going to blow my nose. I'm super sniffy, and I do not want to do it in the mic. 1 second. Okay, super sorry. That was super fast, but I'm super sorry. Okay. Kay said the last time she spoke to Kaylee was at about 5 o'clock on 11/13. That can't be right. She said she spoke to Kaylee was at about 5 o'clock on 11/13. Interesting. Probably has the date wrong. Kay said Kaylee showed up with all of Kaylee's roommates at her apartment, the Whites, sometime between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. Kay said they left sometime between 5 and 6 o'clock. I told Kay I was aware of a social media post of all the roommates pictured together, and Kay said that was at her apartment. I asked Kay if she has been over to Kaylee's house before. I asked if people usually use the Wi-Fi, and Kay was unsure. Kay said they usually leave the doors unlocked, and everyone knows it. And everyone knows it's a blank out of house. I asked why Kaylee lived in the house with a different sorority, and Kay said that Kaylee and Madison have been best friends for several years and spoke about living with one another. Kay said that Kaylee was still close with her freshman-sophomore friend group. I asked Kay if she was aware of any cameras in the area, and Kay said no. Detective asked Kay if she saw anyone in the area that seemed out of place, and Kay said she thought while she was at her apartment and does not remember who, but said somebody mentioned about a random kid carrying a BB gun, but no one thought anything of it. Kay said she has reached out to B on 11/13 after the incident. She reached out to Bethany on 11/13, but Bethany did not reply. Kay said maybe Emily has reached out but was unsure. I asked if anyone has reached out to Dylan or Bethany, and Kay said maybe Emily. Concluded the interview. That was 19. I'm going to go on to 20 because that has importance. Whoops. I can remember how to do it. There we go. There we go. Okay. This is from Aaron Morris on 11/17. At 2:30, I responded to the University of Idaho Kibbe Dome to interview J.N. Captain Barrett stated N possibly had information regarding the homicide. N took Detective Dean and myself to a conference room to speak. N stated on Sunday between 9 and 10 he was walking his dog. He stated when he walked by the first time he noticed the front door to 1122 King Road on the north side of the building facing campus was wide open. He stated he knew it was a party house, so he assumed someone was too intoxicated and forgot to close the door the night prior. N stated he walked his dog up Taylor Avenue to Blake Avenue, then down Sweet Avenue. He said the walk took him approximately an hour. N stated when he walked back to his apartment around 11, the front door was still wide open. N said he was unsure if the information was known or not, but thought he could report it. I asked N if he knew anyone who lived in the house. He said not personally, but just in passing. I thanked N and cleared. So we know that front door was open for at least 3 hours in the morning that day, which would have made the house incredibly cold if the back door and front door was wide open. And if the girls were both down in Bethany's room, they would have freaking known, because Bethany would have had to literally pass by that door when she went downstairs, and it would have been open then. It just doesn't make sense to me. Let me mark these off so I don't forget. All right. Then we're going to move on to 23, only because I want to make a point about this one. Oops, wrong one. Okay. This one's by Maury on the 18th. And it's for the preservation of Dylan's Facebook. It says, on November 18th, I received an email from Olivia Gonsalves showing a screenshot of a Facebook post from Dylan Mortensen. In the post, the account, the username was whatever, reported details about the incident. I searched for this user and found a user ID of blank. This account had an avatar similar to Mortensen's avatar. I was able to pull up the account and appeared to have the following friends associated with it. LM. I questioned preservation on all 4 of these accounts. I requested preservation of all 4 of the accounts. So Dylan, I think it's mainly Dylan that is friends with this person that is LM. This LM is a female. This is not a male. There is another channel who I'm not going to say their name, and I'm not being rude about it, but I just want to make sure that misinformation isn't being spread when it doesn't need to be, since there's already so much misinformation that has been spread over the years. This LM is a female. There is going to be another LM that calls the KBAR company asking about why his order got canceled. And he made a comment to the receptionist lady that answered saying, there was a sheath left at the scene, and it was at a time where nobody knew about the sheath yet, that this caller should have never known that. That is a male with the initials of LM. I don't want anybody to confuse the fact that Dylan has a friend that is a female. These are 2 different LMs. The LM that called about the KBAR sheath or KBAR knife and said that the sheath had been found when he shouldn't have known that is not this LM that is friends with Dylan. That is a female. They're not the same person. I just want people to be aware of that. Somebody is saying that this female LM, they're saying it is the male LM that called KBAR and gave information that he shouldn't have known, and it is not the same person. Just so everybody is aware. So we're going to move on to 28. The ones in between that I'm skipping over, I can tell you what they are really quick, but let me get this page on the screen. There we go. The ones in between, so 22 is Olivia's files. And when I say anything like files or videos or drives or anything like that, it does not show or say what they are. All it says is, I got a thumb drive and put it in this cabinet or in this envelope. It doesn't say what it is at all. So there was a warrant for cell phones, Olivia's files, a Twitch video, a guy leaving a dorm that had dark clothes on, but it was really early in the day, so it was at a dorm, so it had nothing to do with anything. The fact that Eric Gower, which is Kaylee's Uber, it just says that when he picked up Kaylee and Maddie, he was off duty, so it didn't show on Uber's warrant. And then they examined the laptops and iPad. It just doesn't say what they found on them or anything about them. It just says that they were examined, and that's it. So now we're on 28. On November, this is by Maury on the 19th. On November 13th, I was informed of a possible surveillance camera located at King Road. Corporal Ryan Snyder had spoken with one of the residents at this location. PC, who had a camera using the Home iPro app on the porch of their dwelling. They were provided with the username and password so they could download a copy of the video. File format was not recognized. He asked for her to enable it so she could assist them with getting the data. I requested the assistance of Rosinski to contact her and see if she could provide the video from the camera. It said she was in Boise and she would do it when she got home. She sent him a video of a male subject walking by the camera at approximately 3:20 hours towards the dumpster on Rosinski. Hours towards the dumpster. I don't know. Rosinski contacted me and I spoke to her and requested permission to remove the camera from the residence, and she consented. He's talking about how the camera is first in, first out. So if another thing is recorded, then the previous one, at the very front will be deleted. He was concerned data might be lost, requested assistance to unscrew the camera. On the 18th, he again attempted to view the contents. He put the data on the drive and it was recognized by the operating system. In reviewing the data, he found over 13,000 individual images from the card. They appear to be individual video frames from the camera. While attempting to view the data on the card, I received a forwarded email from CN, whose sister, MK, resides at the residence. The email stated that he was viewing the video remotely. He stated he saw a suspicious vehicle in the area and was concerned with the video footage stored on the device being overwritten. I was then put in touch with TL, another resident. Said he would be back in Moscow later. Met with L at her residence and asked again if she'd be willing to assist in recording screen captures on her phone from the device. I explained to L I would replace the camera, gather the information, and then take the camera as evidence. I also explained to L I needed to take the wireless router since the camera was already linked to the Wi-Fi network. And then she consented for them to both be seized. I reinstalled the camera in the light socket and powered it on. I was able to watch as L accessed the footage on the camera. During this time, the camera showed a vehicle entering the area at approximately 3:56 hours and leaving at a high rate of speed at approximately 4:20 hours. Provided that video to him. So this says when the vehicle left at 4:20, they went on Walenta Drive, and then the video stopped. In an attempt to see further and gain perhaps a better resolution, I reconstructed the wireless network to the camera operated by powering the wire, blah, 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 blah. He was able to download the video clips from the app. These clips included audio, which were not part of the screenshots completed and were able to capture a longer duration. In the clips, the vehicle's exhaust and acceleration can be heard, as well as seeing the vehicle leave at a high rate of speed on Walenta. That's it for that one. Like I said, I own that same exact vehicle, and it does not accelerate like that. It doesn't sound like that, like you hear on that video. All right, we're going to go to 30. And this is a phone interview with Kaylee and Xana's friend, PC, which, again, I think is Penelope. Or Phoebe. Sorry, not Penelope. Phoebe. Let me get this one on the screen for you. Put it on there. What I find interesting as well about the last one we just went over with the vehicle is, oh shoot, what was I going to say? I totally forgot. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's what I was going to say. What I find interesting is the police officers that were doing the stop at Banfield, they stopped working and became off duty at 3:52, which is in walking distance from 1122. And the route that white vehicle took is the same route that the police officers were taking all night long, over and over and over. And it sounds just like the police car. And when this car pulled in, it was 3:56. It was 4 minutes after those officers became off duty. Who's not to say that they pulled in there because it was right there, and that's the same route they were taking, and maybe wrote a last report and then took off like, I'm going home? I mean, it's very, very plausible to be that officer's car since it looked like it and sounded like it. This is by Rosinski on 11/21. Phone interview with PC, which I think is Phoebe. On 11/15 at about 13:48 hours, 1:48, I spoke with PC on the phone. She said she was good friends with Kaylee, but was also friends with Xana and Ethan. She said she was a member of the sorority. She's currently a junior at the university. She said she was not aware of anyone that Kaylee associated with that had violent tendencies. She said she's not aware of Kaylee being involved in any rugs in any way. She said she knew people partied with rugs, but doesn't know of Kaylee or any of her roommates being involved in rugs. She said she didn't know if rugs were being sold from their residence. She said she was at a party earlier in the day at a friend's apartment at the Whites. She said at the apartment she saw Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. And they were all just hanging out. There were other people there as well. There was nobody of concern at the apartment, and everyone there was a familiar person. She said she last saw Kaylee at the grub truck. After she arrived after Kaylee and said Kaylee was there with Maddie. She said Kaylee's demeanor was good and they struck up a conversation. She said Kaylee seemed really happy and said Kaylee and Madison were laughing. She said she did not have a conversation with Maddie, only Kaylee. She said they did not mention what their plans were after the grub truck. She said they seemed a little intoxicated and believed they came from the club. Kaylee seemed coherent and was not stumbling or slurring. And she didn't know if Kaylee and Maddie showed up at the grub truck with anyone else. Later, she watched the Twitch video, and it appeared someone showed up with Kaylee and Maddie, but she did not recognize the individual. She said her friends did not either. Kaylee got her food. She saw Kaylee and Maddie walk in the direction of campus. She didn't see anyone follow them. She mentioned that she saw in the grub truck video someone walking in the same direction. Said she heard that there was someone concerting at the corner club, that an individual was being creepy towards Maddie and was kicked out. She's not aware of any other males that Kaylee spent time with. She knew Kaylee had an ex-boyfriend that went to UI, but she understood they were on good terms. She knew Maddie had a boyfriend that graduated from UI. She didn't know his name. She didn't know anyone that Ethan and Xana hung out with. She said she wished she had more to share. And that is it for that one. I just want to make sure and read the ones where anybody is specifically being interviewed. Okay, so we're going to move on to 32, and I want to give a trigger warning. These are the autopsy results. I don't know if we've gotten to this part yet, so I'll keep it brief when I say this, but there's a neighbor or somebody saw, that's who it was. It was Molly McMichael. She said she saw a tan car drive by with the dome light on, and that they had blonde or reddish spiky hair. And I don't know if anybody has heard that yet, but you know who I think it is, or who it could be, is Showalter. He has spiky reddish blondish hair. Yeah, Molly McMethical. But it's possible that it could have been Showalter because he has reddish blondish hair that he could spike up because it's short enough, or if he was, been wearing a hat or whatever, it would be all messy like that. But nobody's mentioned that because everyone else is saying, like, I don't know who that could be. It could be Showalter. He has reddish hair, light blondish reddish hair, strawberry hair, and Decor. Yeah, and Jack Decor. Both of them do, which is crazy because of what we're going to get to, and I'm sure you guys all know, but there was a lot of blood in Showalter's apartment. Unreal. Let's just not investigate that, though, because we got there too late, and he cleaned it up. Okay, so these are the autopsies. On November 16th, at approximately 7:45, Kathy Mabbitt and I attended the 4 autopsies for Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. They were all performed by the same doctor, VS. And there was a detective who observed 3 of them, which were Xana's, Maddie's, and Kaylee's. He arrived after Ethan's autopsy was performed. So they collected a bunch of evidence, which is standard for autopsies, doing swabs of all their cavities, hands. Their hands were bagged as well. And they took pictures. Kaylee only had 1 sock on by the time she got there, which either she's a person who kicks her socks off when she sleeps, or that happened in the struggle. Maddie had the same swabs done. They all had pretty much the same swabs done. Prints were taken of all of them, handprints and footprints. The conclusion of the 4 autopsies by Dr. VS. Ethan Chapin's, trigger warning, Ethan Chapin's fatal injury was from a stab wound under his left clavicle, which severed his subclavian vein and subclavian artery. So those are arteries that come down here and then go just under or almost parallel with your clavicle bone, which are these bones right here that go from your neck to your shoulder. So his clavicle, subclavian vein, and subclavian artery that run parallel with each other as well were both severed. And also his jugular vein was severed, so also in his neck. Ethan only had sharp force injuries. Xana's fatal injuries were from 1 laceration in her right lung, So if she was face on with the perpetrator, that would mean he would have had to, if he's right-handed, he would have had to reach across her body, right? Because it's the opposite. So for that one, the right lung would be across their body to the other side of her body. And 2 lacerations directly in her heart. Kernodle had 50 plus stab wounds, mostly defensive. Xana only had sharp force injuries. Maddie's fatal injuries included a left lung laceration and a liver laceration. Madison only had sharp force injuries. What's weird in this is when the detectives came, or officers from Moscow came and saw Maddie, they specifically said that there were cuts to her hands and arms, but it's not noted here in the autopsy, which I find strange. And no toxicology report, which I also find strange, because to me, that would matter. That should matter to everybody. I think part of that is everybody wants a victim to be painted in a perfect light, like they were the nicest person and they were friends with everybody, and they didn't want it to get out that any of them had drugs in their system. Of course not. Or how intoxicated they were. Of course not. I swear, when I pass, you guys better not put in there, she was the nicest person. No, I speak my mind. I'm not the nicest person in the world. What I also find strange, and this doesn't have anything to do with Boo, but Kaylee's family, specifically her dad, would say, she was, and her sister, of course, she was so popular and everybody loved her and everybody knew her. And, she was just so popular and she was so kind to everybody. Well, when she walked up to the grub truck, not one person screamed her name or welcomed her there, or not one person standing around knew who she was or said anything to her. I just found that interesting. I figured if she was that popular, when she walked up, people would know her, but nobody really did. So, Kaylee's fatal injuries included a left lung laceration, a liver laceration, 2 subdural bleeds, which is in her head, and a stab behind her clavicle, which cut her subclavian vein and artery. She was stabbed in the back. That one came from the back. It says behind her clavicle. So that stab came from the back. So I don't understand how, if she is fighting someone, how could they stab her in the back unless she fell or something? Her autopsy and stuff about her tells us that there was more than one weapon, more than one person. I feel like Kaylee was the target. Kaylee had signs of sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries. Now, when I say asphyxial, usually that means like a strangulation. But I'm going to tell you she was not strangled, and I'm going to tell you why. Her hyoid bone would have been either damaged or broken had she been strangled. She was not strangled. She was gagged. There was no mention of any damage to her hyoid bone, which is in your neck, and that breaks when you've been strangled. Hers was not. So, asphyxial injuries. She was gagged because of the marks on her face and the asphyxial injuries. That's a suffocation. She was gagged with something, with an object. She was not strangled. And blunt force injuries. She was beaten in the head with a hard object. which I'm going to assume is the butt of a gun. And I think we will eventually get to that, but I'm just going to say the butt of a gun because I feel very comfortable saying that, because Dylan, she never said she saw the guy walking with a vacuum or a container. She said the guy was walking with what looked like a gun at his waistline that was shaped in an arrow, which sounds like a large, maybe automatic weapon or some sort of large gun. And she was beaten with that. Also, I think that because Bethany said she heard a boom with what looked like sparklers underneath her door. And I actually think we went over this before, which I think could also be a gun that possibly had a silencer on it. I could be wrong, but that could very well be what it is in my mind. Kaylee had 20 plus stab wounds. Dr. S said the weapon used was not serrated, single-edged, very sharp, and said a lot of force was used by the suspect. Also, there's a new interview with the officers. It's two of them, and I'm not sure which ones they are, but there's a new interview. And those officers specifically say, no, Kaylee's wounds were not done with fists. Those were not from fighting. They went and collected clothing items from the autopsies, which were still wet and needed to dry. What Kaylee was wearing was a Corner Club t-shirt that said nasty and inebriated, Joe Boxer gray and black flannel pants, one white Adidas sock. Maddie was wearing a pink short sleeve shirt and black Vandal sweatpants. Xana was wearing, now the other ones had just bags on their hands, but Xana also had a bag on her foot, which is interesting to me. Like, did she kick the person? How come she's the only one with a bag on her foot? And just one foot. She was also wearing a sweatshirt, a gray Under Armour sweatshirt, and beige Calvin Klein underwear. Ethan, I guess he was just wearing socks. Ethan. Yeah, Ethan was just wearing socks, I guess. Or that's what it says in here. That's it. That's for the autopsies. Handbags. So they will put a paper bag on your hand a lot of times to preserve if there's any if there's any DNA under their fingernails. They want to preserve that. So handbags are, when they get to a victim, they will immediately preserve their hands and sometimes their feet. They'll put literally, like you think of a brown paper lunch sack, literally just like that. They'll put them over your hands and over your feet to preserve that. But what is strange is nobody else had any on their feet except for Xana, and it was only on one foot. So super strange. I'm going to be thinking about that all night now. Why did Xana only have one foot bag and she's the only one that had a foot bag? All right, we're going to go to number 35. Dun, 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 dun. 35, please. There we go. This is by Officer Dean, and this is a drug tip follow-up. And the only reason I wanted to share this was because they were following this lead or trying to get a little bit more information on this lead. And it's a Mexican drug dealer, and his street name starts with a C. I'm not sure who that is. But this person called in a tip that says, Barrett, this guy asked Barrett to follow up on a possible lead. I was told a Mexican drug dealer with the moniker C was possibly selling drugs to several fraternities and sororities on campus. They contacted other people to see if anybody knew who C was. None of the detectives, not even in the Quad Cities, heard of a dealer with the moniker that starts with a C. Some people they interviewed said they had never heard of this person and that they would contact them if they knew who the person was. But I just wanted to show you guys that there was a drug tip called in. But nobody knew who the person selling it was. Yep. If DM and BF would have been interrogated the right way, we would have known what happened 2.5 years ago. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And the fact that when the police got there, nobody was separated. I mean, for hours, nobody was separated. And even being interviewed, sitting in the waiting area of the police station, nobody was separated either. And the defense actually asked for that video, which I find interesting because that shows, look, you guys didn't even separate these people. They could have just sat there and got their story straight. Yeah, nobody is going to rat out their dealer unless you are dumb and want to DIE. Hi, Angie. Welcome. So if you're just popping in, we're going over the documents. However, I'm just pulling the super, super duper important ones that actually say something. A lot of these just say, hey, we transported this thumb drive. It doesn't say what's on it. Just says those I'm not pulling up. Interesting. Xana was in gymnastics. I wonder if she kicked. There had to have been some sort of obvious abrasion or something, or bruise or something on her foot for them to notice it and bag it. So that could very well be. Good point that she was in gymnastics. Yep. Yes. Hey, Denise. I didn't even see your name till just now. I'm glad to see you here. BK, hey, legend. BK was in boxing, but he never once put on a glove and threw a punch. That was stated by the owner of the gym or the person who ran the gym. They said he never actually threw a punch, which I don't see him throwing a punch anyway. Okay, they bagged the exposed foot. But Kaylee only had one sock on, and they didn't bag her other foot. Interesting. I love you guys. You guys are so on top of it. There is a fly driving me nuts. Sorry. You guys are so on top of it. Yep. Well, thank you, tall black man, 6'8". Dang, you are tall. What the heck? Size shoe do you wear? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We're just going over documents for right now. Yes, we appreciate everybody here. Everybody, all the time. Okay, so what was I going to pull up? Oh, crap. We just did 35, right? Yep, that was the drug tip. So we can move on to 42, which is actually Dylan's interview. I'm sure we've all heard this, but we're going to do it just in case anybody hasn't heard it. Let me move this page over here. Remove that one. Oops. What's this? Is this it? Nope, that's not. There we go. 42. Dun, da, da, da. There it is. Okay, this is by Maury on November 28th. It says, on November 13th, I was directed to interview potential witnesses in regards to the incident. On 11/13, Dylan was interviewed in regards to the homicide investigation. Dylan said she was at a residence of the house where the incident occurred. She was at a party at around 10:30 on the day before where she was drinking. She said she went to something house. She said she believed she arrived home between 12:30 and 1 o'clock in the morning. Dylan said she thought Bethany arrived home at around 20 minutes after she arrived. She said she believed Maddie and Kaylee arrived home at around 1:30 or 2. She said up to this, nothing weird had happened during the night. Dylan said she and her friend Elle, which I think could be the female LM that I was talking about earlier. Don't be confused. That is not the LM. That is the caller of KBAR. Two different people. Dylan said Elle lived at the something house and Bethany was her roommate at the residence. B. Weird. That might, wait. And B was her roommate at the residence, maybe previously. Dylan said when Maddie and Kaylee came home from the corner club at the same time and everybody went to bed. That's weird because previously we've been told that they went into Kaylee's room and were all talking. So now she's not saying that. Dylan was asked about the layout of her house. Dylan said Kaylee's room was directly above her room, which is not true. Maddie's room is directly above Dylan's room. Dylan said she lived on the second floor and Kaylee lived on the third floor. Dylan said Kaylee and Maddie both live upstairs on the third floor in separate rooms. Which is strange because I thought Kaylee moved out. And she would have known that because remember she drove all the way to Kaylee's parents' house to beg her to come back that weekend. Dylan said Xana lived closest to the bathroom on the second floor and Bethany lived on the first floor. When asked about Murphy, Dylan said it was a dog owned in common between Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend, Jack. Dylan said there were no apparent issues between Kaylee and Jack. Dylan said Maddie had a boyfriend named Jake who was in Boise at the time of the incident. Dylan indicated Xana was dating Ethan Chapin, who was in the room with her at the time of the incident. Dylan did not know of anyone who would want to hurt Ethan. She was asked if she saw any cars in the area that should not be there. Dylan said, no, I was not really looking at that. Dylan said she woke up at around 4, line number 1, where she could hear Kaylee and Murphy, the dog, dancing. Dylan said she knew it was Kaylee because she recognized her voice and could hear Murphy barking. Dylan said she heard Kaylee go upstairs and say, there's someone here. Dylan said she thought she heard Kaylee run back down the stairs. We know now that was not Kaylee, that was Xana that went upstairs and ran back down. Dylan said Kaylee sounded scared when she made that statement. Dylan said at this time she jumped up, locked the door because she didn't know what else to do. She said she called out Kaylee's name and did not indicate if she got a response. She said she then tried to call Kaylee on her cell phone, and Xana and Maddie on their phones. Dylan was asked if she saw anyone come downstairs or heard anything. Dylan said, no, I don't even know how they got in. Line number 2, because you said you saw him and heard him. We're usually pretty good about locking doors. Line number 3, because they've never had problems before. Line number 4, because we know that they've had problems. They've come home and their sliding back door was open. They've come home and their front door was wide open. When asked again about the series of events, Dylan said she opened the door when she cried out to Kaylee, then closed the door because she was scared. She then opened the door again and heard who she thought was Kaylee, but could have been Xana, crying in the bathroom. She said she then heard a man's voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Dylan said it was weird because the statement was not in a nice way. The voice was one she'd never heard before. Dylan said she called out to Kaylee again and there was no crying after, and she did not know what happened after that. Dylan said she opened the door again and the guy was right there. And we know the good vibes sign was on, so she should have been able to see something other than just a bushy eyebrow. There should have been some sort of light right there. She said the suspect was wearing all black and a mask that covered just his forehead and goes around his face. So not his eyes, nose, mouth, just goes around his face. Weird. Oh, but covered his mouth area. So she would have seen his eyes and nose, which to me, if you've seen someone eyes and nose, especially Brian Koberger's, and then you saw him again, you would know that you saw him. You would know by those eyes. He has very rememberable eyes. This fly's driving me freaking nuts. Hi, Leslie and Billy. Hi, Shanna. What was war? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know. I love this statement. Imagine if she would have just called the dang police. Here's what kills me. She saw a man with a gun. Yes, they do. Mom and sister look just like him. She says she saw a man with what looked like a gun. You hear people running. You hear a man saying, "I'm going to help you." Now you know someone needs help. He didn't even say it in a nice way. So you know someone needs help. You heard someone say there's someone here. You saw a man that you've never seen before. You didn't recognize him or his voice. He's got a gun. You hear running. You didn't call 911. Stop it. Stop. Goodness. She said she was in and out of it. So she said Dylan was asked how long she believed it was from the time Kaylee said someone is here to when she opened her door and saw the man standing right there. Dylan said she thought it was about 10 or 20 minutes in between her hearing Kaylee and seeing the guy outside of her door. Well, they're saying that BK did this in 8 minutes or less. If 10 or 20 minutes had passed, then the people were in there for way longer than 8 minutes or less. But she said she was in and out of it and she didn't fully remember the incident. She was asked where the suspect was at in the residence when she saw him, and she said the suspect was between her bedroom and her bedroom door and the kitchen. She said she remember watching the suspect go out the kitchen door and leave. She said she then closed her door and locked it as fast as she could. She said the suspect did not walk toward her or say anything. Once the suspect left, she immediately called Bethany. Bethany informed her she heard a sound that sounded like a firework. Dylan then said she told Bethany she called everyone and they're not answering. Dylan said She was in and out of it and believed everyone was just asleep. Dylan said she then went to Bethany's room, locked the door, and went to bed. Dylan said she woke up at around 11 or noon. That is lie number 5. Because you guys were on your phone the entire night, the entire morning. She said she called her roommates and no one answered. Dylan said she called Hunter. Hunter came to the residence, went upstairs, and told Dylan they needed to call law enforcement immediately. Dylan was asked if there was anything else she wanted to share. Dylan said the noise Bethany described was a loud boom, and Dylan didn't hear it. What I think that could possibly be actually is Xana falling to the floor, which would have been directly above Bethany's room. But at the same time she heard the boom is when she saw the light under her door, the flashing of a light. So that, to me, in my mind, I'm picturing a perpetrator upstairs that just finished Xana, and she fell to the floor. And there's another perpetrator downstairs with something trying to lure Bethany out. Trying to lure not just Bethany specifically, but anybody who was on the first floor, thinking if they shot a gun or had a taser or whatever could make a sparkler looking type of light from under the door to maybe lure out whoever was downstairs. But she didn't fall for the trick. But in my mind, I'm picturing 2 different perpetrators at the same time, one on the first floor and one on the second floor. Dylan was asked if any of her roommates shared any weird experiences in the last couple of weeks or calls or texts, and Dylan said no, it's been all normal, nothing weird at all. Nothing really weird happens in Moscow usually. When asked if there were any altercations at the party, Dylan said no, everything was normal. Dylan mentioned again she was with Dee and Xana at the party. Dee was asked if anyone was having sexual relations with anyone they shouldn't be, and Dylan said no. She brought up an incident which occurred about a month prior, said she and Bethany remembered Kaylee saw a shadow while she was taking Murphy outside. Dylan said Kaylee also mentioned when she was at somewhere 2 or 3 weeks prior, an individual was following her. Dylan also said she arrived home one time and the door to the residence at 1122 King Road was found open. Dylan said she did not believe the slider door was locked the night of the 12th. Dylan said she heard Murphy barking a lot around 4 in the morning when Kaylee went upstairs. Dylan said she heard Murphy go outside barking as well. Dylan was unsure if Murphy would chase a suspect outside. Dylan said she did not remember if the suspect who ran left the slider open. Is she talking about 2 different suspects? Because first she said the guy she saw walked through the kitchen and walked out the back slider and left. Now she's saying she did not remember if the suspect who ran left the slider open. So are there 2 different suspects she's talking about? I'm pretty sure it's the same person, but it's like she can't just keep her dang simple little story the same. This is interview number 2 with Hunter. At around noon, Dylan called Emily, Hunter's girlfriend. Dylan told Emily she thought something was not right in her house. Dylan also told Emily she heard or saw a man in her house the night prior. She asked Emily and Hunter to come over and make sure everything was okay because she locked herself in Bethany's room. Hunter said he was the first person to get to the residence. He said he entered the code to the front door. So who the fuck closed the front door after 11 in the morning? Those girls, excuse my language, but those girls went and walked around that house and they knew exactly what had happened. And they still waited and waited and cleaned up before they called Emily and Hunter. Because if you guys remember, the person walking their dog walked by at 11 in the morning. From 8 to 11, that door, we know for a fact, was wide open. So which one of them shut the door? Why does Hunter have to put the code in to open the front door when it's been open all morning? But she doesn't say anything about that. She wants to remove herself from this incident as much as she can. Wild. So Hunter put the code in the front door where Bethany and Dylan were in Bethany's room on the first floor. Dylan and Bethany were telling, wait a second. I thought when Hunter and Emily got there, Dylan and Bethany were outside with their hands on their mouth. Yes, exactly, Amelia. Exactly. But now, yeah, exactly. Why does 1122 have no footage from 4:20 in the morning till noon? Yes. Yeah, gosh, wouldn't that be amazing to just be able to go through it or put it on a Celebrite and take everything out of it and go through it? Ugh. Oh, interesting thought. The boom could also have jumped off the balcony. Yeah, somebody could have jumped off that balcony for sure. I mean, you could never convince me in the rest of my life that this was only one person doing this. But yeah, this doesn't make sense because in the Amazon thing, Emily said Dylan and Bethany were already outside with their hands on their mouth. So they obviously knew what happened. We obviously know somebody got up and closed the front door. But now Hunter's saying when he got there, he had to put the code in because Dylan and Bethany were inside. It can't be both. So weird. When was this report taken? Oh, I think it was on here. The 18th or something, right? Okay. We'll keep going. Said he went up the stairs and immediately went into Xana's room. Hunter said this was the only room he went into. Hunter said when he approached the door, it was only partially open. He said when he opened it, he saw Xana and Ethan. He said he initially did not realize all the blood was dried blood in the room. He said he thought at first they had been drunk and left a mess. He said when he stood there for a moment, he began to realize what he was seeing. He said Bethany and Dylan were uncontrollably crying. So they knew. Why would they be uncontrollably crying if somebody was just passed out on the floor? Like they said, they thought. Hunter said he told them to get out of the house and call law enforcement. Hunter said he then went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife from the drawer. He said he then went into the room and checked the closet to make sure there was no one else in the room. Hunter said he checked for a pulse on both Xana and Ethan. So wouldn't he have blood on his hands? Said both of their bodies had rigor mortis and were cold with no breath or pulse. Hunter said he believed the two had been deceased for a while. Hunter said he believed he left the knife on the folding table in the living room. But in a different report, it says the knife was on the floor. Hunter said Emily, Josie, and L, which is the LM, that's a female, and I can't remember her first name, started to enter the house and come upstairs. Hunter told them to get out of the residence. Hunter said this was about the time the police department arrived on scene. He said the officer told him to stay where he was at. He said he didn't know if anyone else was upstairs as he had not gone anywhere else in the house. He said he had trouble comprehending what he was seeing. Hunter said he was not at the blank party the night prior. He said that him and Ethan were texting the night prior by phone. He said Ethan wanted him to come over, but Hunter chose not to. Hunter said he knew Ethan since fall of 2021. Hunter said he was in whatever, and Ethan was a member of Sigma Chi. Hunter indicated J and E, I think Josie and Emily, were in the same sorority and were roommates. Hunter said L, who was also present, was in the fraternity. Oh, this L is a guy. Was in the fraternity and was currently dating J, I think Josie. H said he and L stayed at J's apartment with Emily and Josie the night of 11/12. Hunter was asked when was the last time he was at 1122 King Road. He indicated he was last at the residence on the day before, where he was pre-gaming for the Vandals football game. Hunter said he got to the residence at around noon or 1 and left at about 2:30 to go to a different party. Hunter said the last time Emily was at 1122 King Road was Friday. Hunter did not know of anyone who had issues with Ethan and Xana dating. Hunter estimated Xana and Ethan were dating for 8 months. He knew Xana very well through his girlfriend, Emily. He said he was not very familiar with Maddie or Kaylee. Hunter allowed pictures to be taken off of his phone of the conversations between him and Ethan. Interview with J.M., I believe is Jenna. Jenna said she texted Bethany at 11:20 on the morning of the 13th. She asked Bethany if she was awake. She said Bethany called her back at 11:49. Bethany told her she and Dylan were in the basement in Bethany's room. Jenna said Bethany was freaked out because her roommates were not answering the phone. She said she heard Dylan on the phone in the background saying, "I saw something." Jenna said Bethany asked her to come over and pick her up. Dang. So she was going to have this, I think it's Jenna. She was just going to have Jenna come and pick her up so she could just leave the scene. What the heck? Jenna said Bethany asked her to come over to one and pick her up. Jenna said Bethany texted her while she was driving there and said Emily and Hunter were on their way as well. Jenna said as she arrived, MPD units were arriving as well. She said she didn't go to the party, but went to a different one instead. She said Bethany and Dylan came to this other party after she left. Dylan left her party at 12:30, and Bethany left her party at 1. She said she was in blank with Dylan, Elle, Bethany, and Xana. She said Xana and Maddie were both in some whatever sorority they were in, but she dropped out, and Kaylee was in, I think, Pi Phi, right? And she dropped out as well. She suspected the girls dropped their sororities because of issues with other girls in the houses, specifically cited girls on the executive board who tell other members what to do. This is just talking about what sororities they were in and why they dropped, but it's nothing. It was she thought it was just either money or people being bossy and they didn't like it. She said she knew Kaylee saw a dark figure staring at her from the tree line when she took her dog Murphy out to pee. She said this occurred about a month ago. She said there has been a light-hearted talk and jokes made about a stalker in the past. She said all the girls were slightly nervous about it being a fact, though. She did not indicate any social media issues or issues between the girls who lived there. She said there was no issue with the girls from the blank sorority and the residents at 1122 King Road. She said the front door had issues with locking and sometimes it could be opened without a code. She said she did know the code to the front door. She said she was unsure if the residents kept the back sliding door locked regularly. LB, this is the L that I was saying could be LM. It's not. It's LB, and this one is a guy. Elle said he did not go to the blank party. He said he went to sleep at an apartment on Taylor Avenue. When he woke up around 2 or 3 in the morning, he said him, Jay, and E were up talking in the living room in the apartment at about 5 in the morning. He indicated Hunter was present but not awake during this time. Elle said they all went to bed at this time and woke up again at around what he thought was 9 in the morning. Elle said Hunter and Emily came into the room where he and Jay were. Elle said Dylan had called Emily at around 10 and sounded scared. Elle said Dylan told Emily someone had been in their house last night. Elle said Dylan and Bethany ran downstairs and locked themselves in a room. Wait, so at what point was Bethany upstairs? Elle said Dylan told Emily someone had been in their house last night. He said Dylan and Bethany ran downstairs and locked themselves in a room. They both ran downstairs. When was Bethany upstairs? Because he said Dylan said this. Interesting. Elle said that Dylan informed them she did this because of her seeing someone in the house and Dylan could only see his nose and his chin. Thought she couldn't see his chin. Anyways, Elle said Dylan was freaking out and wanted them to come over to 1122. Elle said he walked with Emily and either Jenna or Josie to 1122 King Road from Jay's apartment on Taylor Avenue. Dylan and Bethany walked out of the house crying. Hunter arrived to the residence first because he left before them. Elle said he went into the downstairs door and Hunter told him not to come up the stairs. He said he did not know Ethan very well. He said he did not recall any talk between Xana and Josie about boy issues. He didn't see anything on social media. He recalled an incident from about a month prior where Dylan said there was a guy stalking her. Huh. So Dylan said she had a stalker, but he did not hear anything the night prior. Okay, that one is 42. We'll mark that off. Where did my pen go? And we're going to move on to 51, which is the evidence collected at the scene. That one goes to 50, so it'll be the next one. 51. And there we go. Right? It's like they were like on a mission to try and say that there was a dang stalker. And I'm going to tell you that it wasn't Koberger, and I'm going to tell you how it wasn't Koberger if we end up getting there tonight. I don't know if any of you watched Pav, but Pav said that Brian Koberger took 9 trips to Target from the time he moved there. Well, the time frame that the police are saying that he took 20, that he went by 1122 residents 23 times, and Pav is saying, well, no, 9 of those he was going to Target in Moscow, and I'm going to tell you how it was way more times than that he went to Target. And he was buying food. He was not driving by 1122 King Road. He was going to Target. 51. Evidence collected at the scene. This is written by Brett Payne. And this was on December 4th. So I'll just say it now. As we keep going and these reports get dated back further and further, it starts to go into February and March and April, the end of December. They are writing reports of things they're trying to recall from 11/13. and they're writing these reports on this information that they have to dig up in their mind now to write these reports. Why did you not write these are highly important. This is a quadruple homicide, and you waited 2 months to write your dang report on what you saw when you walked into this homicide, quadruple homicide? Why? You guys had FBI help and everything else, and it took you 2 months to try and recall these events to then write a report on it that was going to be used in this case in a trial? Wild. That should be completely unacceptable. I mean, everybody knows that eyewitness accounts and how we remember things is wrong like 80% of the time. It is also the same way for police officers. They're just regular humans as well. So they can't recall things either 2 months away, 3 months later. Stop it. It's terrible. This is just the evidence that they took. A foot cast, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingerprints, a cell phone, 2 laptops, the knife sheath, a white blanket, a phone, a vape, a fingerprint, a steak knife, which I'm assuming is the knife that Hunter had. So I used to complain about them not taking the knife that Hunter had, but apparently they did. I don't think they did anything with it. They never swabbed it. They never tested it, but they did take it, I guess. 17 through 43 are blood swabs. A disposable camera. That is so weird. They mention a disposable camera a couple of different times. Later, they'll find another disposable camera that was hidden in a drawer. Like a 3-bin drawer, and it was down in the bottom. And that was in Kaylee's room. 2 more laptops, latex gloves. That's funny. That is so funny. I just realized that. They took latex gloves from the scene. So someone there had latex gloves, but they wanted to throw a huge effing fit about Brian Koberger having latex gloves in his house. Target is too expensive. It really is. I used to shop at Target, and then I'm like, what? I can get this stuff for almost half the price somewhere else? I'm done with Target. Yeah, a disposable camera from the 90s. Like, how would these girls even know what a disposable camera is? Why did they have so many disposable cameras? It's very strange because they don't develop the film on them. They don't know what's on them. It's weird. The disposable camera thing is weird because that was way before these girls' time. They took another laptop, an iPad, bedding, game bags. Officer Smith and I entered the residence through the bottom floor on the north side of the building, so the front door. Upon entering, I observed a small bedroom on the west side of the bottom floor. The door was ajar, and I could see a bed with covers and several other miscellaneous personal items strewn about. The room did not appear to have been occupied by anyone, as I did not see any clothes inside. I followed Smith down the hall where there was a small bedroom. Next to the small bathroom to the east was what I later learned was a utility closet. This closet had a pin code style lock and was secured. I looked into the bedroom on the east end of the bottom floor, which I later learned belonged to Bethany Funk. The room had normal clothes and personal items about, but otherwise did not seem out of the ordinary. Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. The stairs ended in a small living room. There was a sectional style couch along the east and south of the wall. There was also a small TV in a void. I also saw a black backpack on the floor just east of the top of the stairs. Smith then directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, where I later learned was Dana Kernodle's room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was laying on her back with her feet facing the east and her head was facing west. Kernodle had thong-type underwear on and a gray sweatshirt. There was a large amount of blood on the floor around Kernodle as well. I could see numerous wounds on Kernodle's arms, hands, and face, which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Just next to Kernodle on the west wall was a small white nightstand, which appeared to have been moved as it was pushed against the wall at an odd angle. There was blood on this nightstand in various locations. So there was obviously a very strong struggle with Xana. Xana fought like hella. When they say that they think Brian Koberger sat in a chair, that was said by Dateline. That was never said by any officer that there was blood on this chair. And if there was blood on the chair, I would think it happened during the struggle and not that somebody took a dang seat in a chair. No, that did not happen. The bed in Kernodle's room was situated on the south wall of the bedroom, with the head of the bed appearing to be towards the west wall. I could see a male, which was Ethan Chapin, laying on his back in the bed with some type of blanket pulled over his midsection. And again, I'm going to say, when you unalive somebody and you put a blanket over their body to cover them, that is because you know them. It usually, not all the time, but most of the time, if you cover up the body, it's because you're ashamed of what you've done and you have some sort of care or concern for this person, or you did at some point in your life. But it's usually when... I hear you, buddy. You want to come here? Do you want to come here? Bronx is over here crying for me to give him attention. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here. You come see? 1 second. Bronx is coming over here. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come say hi. Hi, Bobby. Hi. Say hi. Oh, they can't see you. Look, there he is. Say hi. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bobo. Thank you. Okay. Can you lay down for a minute? He's a good boy. He's so sweet, buddy. He's so sweet. You lay down? Well, lay down. Lay down. Okay, sorry, guys. He was asking for kisses from Mama. Yes, someone sitting. Oh, that's so sweet, James. Thank you. I do pride myself on being a good doggy mommy. He really is my whole world. I always read those things that say, you know, your dog waits all day for you to get home from work. You have all these other people in your life and things to do, but your dog only has you. And I try and live that to the absolute fullest. I've never been out of the house without him. He goes everywhere with me. I love my baby. That's for sure. Okay. So we're going to just keep going. Anyway, so yeah, before Bronx came over here, Ethan was covered up. He saw that Ethan was covered up his midsection with a blanket. Blanket pulled over his midsection. Chapin's body was at an angle on the bed so that his head was up against the south wall and his feet were hanging off the bed on the north side. I could not clearly see the wound to Chapin's head and neck area, but could see a very large amount of blood on the bed, as well as what appeared to be blood spatter on the wall next to Chapin's head and neck. That's because of his jugular was cut, so it was probably literally just spraying every time his heart would beat until his heart didn't beat anymore. I also noticed 2 large cuts to the back of Chapin's legs. The wounds appeared to be deep into the tissue, but were difficult to see due to Ethan's body position. I always found that a little strange. How, if Ethan was on his back, how did the perpetrator cut the backs of his legs? Unless Ethan tried to get up or tried to do something or was laying a different way when the perp came in there and they cut his legs first, and then Ethan, flipped over, tried to get up or whatever, and that's when they got him in the neck. What I do want to make a point of is, if you notice, all of their injuries, they were literally tortured. These people, whoever did this, took the time to make sure and give them wounds that would not take their life at first. They purposely wounded them and wounded them and wounded them, and then would do the last wound would be the one that would take their life. It would be a cut to the neck or to the heart. But the first many wounds were not to take their life. It was more or less to torture them and give them awful wounds so they knew what was happening to them. And that's just devastating. These people chose when they would give them that last fatal wound. And it was after they were able to give them so many that weren't fatal and torture the heck out of them. And that is so hard to stomach. I also noticed 2 large cuts on Ethan's legs, but it was hard to see due to his body position. Smith then took me through the house and pointed out Dylan Mortensen's bedroom, which was situated on the southeast side of the 2nd floor of the house. Mortensen's bedroom door opened to the kitchen area as well as the staircase, which led to the 3rd floor of the house. Upon my brief visual inspection, Mortensen's room was disheveled, but did not appear to have any blood or evidence of a struggle within. I then followed Smith upstairs to the 3rd floor of the residence. The 3rd floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee's room. This room appeared neat and picked up. The only thing of note was the sheets on the bed were pulled back in a manner which suggested someone had been laying in the bed and then gotten out of it. So, do we think Kaylee was laying in her bed and she was found in her bed and made to go into Maddie's room? I agree, Christina. I think they tortured each one in front of the other. I think Ethan saw Xana and Kaylee saw Maddie. I agree. Hi, Better Tea. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Vidrios. I don't know if I said hi to you, but I've been reading your comments. Smegilligan. That's so cute. Bazaru. Hello, everybody. Hello. Bambi, thank you for being here. I agree. If we know the truth, it won't point to Kohlberger. It doesn't. It literally doesn't. And the officers know that too. Detectives know that. Nobody's here, buddy. Nobody's here. He thinks someone's at the door. Nobody's here. Okay. Pointed out a bathroom. Corner of the 3rd floor. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in a single bed in the room. Oh, that's what I was saying. Kaylee, I think, was in her bed, and the perpetrators got her out of her bed and brought her into Maddie's room. And I don't know if we'll get to it tonight, but I'll just skip ahead real quick and say there was blood on the wall in Kaylee's room. And I think that something was done to Maddie, and then they went in and got Kaylee, but she wasn't, Maddie wasn't completely gone yet, I guess is a nice way to put it. I think they went in and got Kaylee and brought her into Maddie's room and then finished, because there was blood in Kaylee's room. And if that's not the truth, then the only other thing I can think of is one of them did let Murphy back in. And they maybe went in Kaylee's room and flipped the light switch, but had blood on their hand. So when they flipped the light switch, it got blood on the wall. I don't know. or opening the back door. I'm not sure because I don't remember what wall it's on. Both Gonsalves and Mogan had numerous visible stab wounds and were covered in a significant amount of blood. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying in the bed next to Mogan's right side when viewed from the door. I remained in the room for a moment and then proceeded back outside. Remained on the scene, did several more walkthroughs. Upon receipt of a search warrant prepared, processed the scene, collected an initial 56 pieces of evidence. That's it. Their first walkthrough of the scene, they only collected 56 pieces of evidence. You would think you would collect like everything with blood on it, everything that could have a print, that's strange to me. We're going to go to 52, which is a vehicle test and a glove found. I don't think it's super duper important or long, but it's just that they did find a glove. I just want to make sure everybody does see it, though. And this is by Brett Payne on December 4th. At approximately 5 o'clock on the 24th, I took the MPD school car, a silver Ford Fusion, and drove the route of the suspect vehicle. I drove 2 separate routes in front of the camera located at Ridge Road, once westbound on Lauder, and then twice on Ridge Road southbound and northbound. I advised the command post of the times of these runs and requested the video from the point of contact in order to compare the color of the test vehicle to that of the suspect vehicle. Now, a cute AI baby. I haven't done those yet. I've been thinking about doing one because I think they're super freaking adorable. Hey, Skullama. Okay, how do you pronounce it? Is it Skullamachai, Skullamakai, Skullamaki, Skullamachi? My question is, oh, you did? Oh my God, you guys are so freaking awesome. You guys rock. I can't wait to see it. That's going to make my dang day. Chai tea or Kai. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So this report basically says, I don't really need to read the entire thing. At the end, they found the glove next to the crime scene tape that we all know of that I think who took Chris McDougal, what's his name? Freaking annoying. The guy who said he found the glove, this is the report on that, but it doesn't mention his name in it anywhere. I don't know. So this report is basically saying they took one of the Moscow Police Department cars and they did the same drive that they're saying the suspect vehicle drove. Now, if I was a super duper conspiracy theorist, I would say, how do we know that the suspect vehicle video we've all been seeing isn't the one that the police did with their own vehicle? How do we know it's not the vehicle or the video that the police made of their own vehicle taking this route? We don't know that. Because they're saying they did the same route that the suspect vehicle made and filmed it. We're going to skip over a bunch of these. We have Maisie's interview. There's a Walmart warrant. And then there is, in 2021, apparently there were some rapes of U of I students that was not reported on. Like, in this investigation. Nobody said anything about it, but they tried to get some of the details, and they weren't really given much details on it, but just that there were a couple of rapes at U of I students back in 2021. And I don't think there really was any investigations on this. I have a crazy story for you guys if you want to hear it. It's really short. In Wisconsin, there was a coach that was looking at a recruit for one of their sports teams. The recruit came on campus. Very shortly later, the mom of a girl that was a student there in Wisconsin called the coach and said, "Your new recruit raped my daughter." And the coach did exactly what he was supposed to do. He called 911 immediately. Do you know this coach was fired by the university because he called 911 instead of the university, because the university wanted to cover it up. And it reminds me so much of this case, because if you remember in the book, one of the very first things that happened in the book was the homicides happened. And then one of the detectives, I think it was Fry, asked, "Did you call the university?" The university was notified before any of the victims' parents were. And that's wild. And I'm sure there's a lot more stuff in this case that's being covered up because the university said so. The university has like their own fake jury. And instead of reporting things to the police, they want you to report them to the university so the university can decide how to handle it. They literally have like 6 or 9 people on this fake jury, and they decide what happens with crime in this town. So you bet the university controls everything before the police. They are more important than the police. We have an interview. That's number 72. Bum, 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 bum. Didn't it. Oh, I should probably put it on the screen, right, Logan? Derp. Okay. This is an interview of BJ from KBAR. Okay, so this is the one I was talking about. A man with the initials of LM called KBAR, and this is what happened. They got a call from KBAR employee that referenced a customer named LM. L had been contacted earlier on 12/1. M is the employee, and they had been contacted earlier on 12/1 by ISP Detective Boone and Barrett due to his name being provided by KBAR on a list of people who had placed orders from KBAR. D stated a call taker, BJ from KBAR, received a strange phone call from M. So LM, the police ran a list of all the people in a certain time frame in the area that had purchased a KBAR, and this guy was on the list. His initials are LM. He called KBAR and asked them why they canceled his order. FBI had shown up at his house and he didn't like it, so he called KBAR, the company. This employee says she answered the call from LM with a normal greeting directed by KBAR. M interjected when she asked about his concerns about the call and stated, "We will get to that later." J went on to tell M why the order was canceled. M stated he understood and never put his phone number on the order to prevent phone solicitation. So this dude was trying to hide his phone number, didn't want his phone number connected with this KBAR order. M then abruptly asked, "What can you tell me about the 2 feds that showed up at my door today questioning my recent KBAR order?" The employee stated she didn't know what he was talking about, as she had no knowledge of the investigation. The caller then stated something to the effect of, a KBAR sheath was left at the scene. Jay stated she didn't know anything about the situation and asked M if he wanted to complete his order. M stated he was a collector. He was a collector and had enough for now. Well, then why were you trying to order a replacement? Why were you trying to order another KBAR? He said he better hold off until things die down a little bit. Now, he mentioned the sheath at the scene before the police had ever said anything about a sheath. And they apparently talked to each other and said, hey, did you leak it? Did you say this to somebody? And everybody was like, I never told a soul. So this person should not know that a sheath was found at the scene. And his initials are LM. And that's what I was talking about another channel is confusing this guy with a female friend of the girls that also has the initials LM that shows up at the house sometimes. So this other channel is thinking that this LM that's calling is showing up at their house when that's not true. 73 is Showalter's warrant. This was written by Payne literally an entire month later. This is the warrant for the 4 blood spots in Showalter's apartment. Item 261, 262, 263, 264 are blood swabs in Showalter's apartment. Applied for and was granted a search warrant for Queen Road, the residence of John Jack Showalter. The warrant was based off the following information. Officer House and I responded to Queen Road at approximately 10 in the morning on 11/15. We walked on the common walkway in front of the door to Showalter's apartment and observed the exterior of the door. The area around the door had numerous spots of dried fluid, which appeared to be rust drops from a metal roof above the apartment's door. These drops were mainly on the wall next to the door frame, not on the frame itself. I observed what appeared to be a different fluid spot on the door, approximately 8 inches up from the bottom of the door and under the doorknob. I also noticed the deadbolt plating was clean. So Showalter not only had blood on his door, but he also, sorry, my nose is runny. He also cleaned the whole knob and plating of the door off. Like, why would you do that? And you have blood drops on your door? Weird. So this guy who was walking by the door on the 15th thought it was rust, but it wasn't. It was blood. And the rest of this just says when they went back to go get those swabs of blood off the door, they weren't there anymore. Showalter had cleaned them off. But what they did get was 4 swabs of blood from the bathroom, the wall, the shower curtain of Showalter's. There were 4 of them. And if I'm not mistaken, later they end up losing them. We're going to skip to 77. What is 77? 77 is an interview with SP. Oh, maybe I should share it. Ha 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 ha. This is written by James Fry. Interview with SP. Their birthday is 1953. At approximately 20 hours, I interviewed SP in Idaho at the something. He called me several days earlier to report some information he had regarding the quadruple homicide. I asked P if the information he would be sharing would be dealing with one person. P told me it would. I asked P if I could get the individual's name. P told me the person's name was G or G, later identified as GM, with a birth date of 2003. Told me he lived in the apartments. His apartment is just off blank avenue and turn into blank lane and then right onto blank street. It's the apartment that is across from the blank blank. He told me G lives in the blank apartments. He began by explaining to me that he had done a lot of work for DK, who is the prior owner of blank. P told me he has been a friend of the family for many years and has done handyman jobs in the past for D. P told me in 2020 he drove D, his daughter L, and G up to a place the family goes to have a vacation every year. He told me after they got there, R, who is one of D's sisters, got into an altercation with a male who was camped near where they were. He told me the argument got heated. Everyone eventually went back to their campsite. They were walking up a hill, and all of the sudden, G just appeared out of nowhere. P told me it startled him for a minute because he never heard or saw where G came from. He told me G pulled out a knife to show him. This was a hunting style knife. G had showed a great interest in having a career in the military. I asked P if he could describe the knife to me. P told me it was a typical 7-inch blade hunting skinning knife. He told me that G's grades in school had dropped and that L had been extremely verbally abusive to him. I asked how L and G would travel to Moscow from Boise. He told me he believed they would ride the bus when they traveled. Pete told me at around the end of May or sometime in the middle of June, after COVID was letting up, he was at the Mad Greek having lunch, later early in dinner. Oh, this is where, okay, yeah, this one actually ended up being not true. Apparently this guy says they had no idea that I was there and that I could have killed them all if I wanted to. He's talking about a conversation this guy had at the Mad Greek, and that he had followed the girls to the Mad Greek from the college. But these two girls he's talking about were lesbians. So actually, probably doesn't really have much of anything to do with this case. Just another ding-dong. We can skip to 89 is Bethany's interview. '89. Doop. Okay. This is from Blaker, and this was written at the end of freaking December. Interview with Bethany. So almost 2 months later, Blaker is now reporting the interview he had with Bethany. You're trying to tell me he's able to, I'm sure, I mean, he jotted down notes or whatever when he was doing this interview, I'm sure, but still, it's like, you're going to try and write the report on it 2 months later? Stop. At around 13:47 hours, I interviewed Bethany at the Moscow Police Department in regards to the death of her 4 roommates. Bethany is a resident at 1122. She was sleeping in her room located in the basement of the residence. She has an iPhone 11 Pro cell phone with passcode. She went to the blank party at around 20:30 hours with Ethan Chapin. So about 8:30. In Santa Coronado. They hung out in an apartment for a while together, and then Bethany went up to the main part of the fraternity to hang out at the party. Maddie and Kaylee went to the corner club together, and not sure when they left. Bethany did not see Ethan and Xana at the party and left to go to KF residence at Taylor Avenue. Bethany walked home at around 1-ish, and when she got back to 1122 King Road, Dylan and LM were at the residence, and they all watched a movie together. That's the female LM I'm talking about. That is not the male caller LM for the KBAR knife thing, where he knew about the sheath and shouldn't have. Maddie and Kaylee got to the house at around 1:45 or 2. Elle left the house, and Dylan went to bed. Bethany hung out with Maddie and Kaylee for a while in Kaylee's room. Bethany and Maddie took Murphy, Kaylee's dog, out to go to the bathroom between 2:30 and 3. Bethany did not stay outside for very long as it was cold. Maddie then went to bed and watched a TV show to help her fall asleep. At around 4 or 4:20, Bethany heard what she thought was a firework and saw a spark on the ground from under her door. A firework. I don't think that would be Xana falling. I think that's a gun. I'm pretty sure that's probably a gun. And a spark under her door. I wonder if the detectives or anybody even looked for like super tiny bullet holes in the wall or the floor or anything. That could possibly be something to lure Bethany out of her room or anybody who might be downstairs. Which is weird though, because why would you skip over Dylan after you saw her and heard her? Dylan called Bethany and stated she had seen someone in the house, and Bethany told her she should come down to her room and sleep with her. Dylan went to Bethany's room and went to bed. They woke up at around 11, liars, and talked to other friends who came over, and they checked on Xana and Ethan and found them deceased. Bethany originally called 911 and stated her friend was passed out and would not wake up. Bethany talked about an incident with Kaylee, who stated about a month ago she saw an unknown male up above their house to the south who was staring at her when she took Murphy out to go potty. Bethany stated Kaylee broke up with her longtime boyfriend about 3 months ago because she was planning on moving to Texas. Bethany could not provide me with anything else at the time. That is Bethany's interview. And then 90, the next one, is actually a second interview with Bethany, but it was done in Reno, where she lives, Nevada. Okay, this is from Blaker. The same date. Whoops. So he met with her on November 16th at around 11:55 at her office. Present during the interview besides me and Bethany were her, I'm going to assume lawyer or lawyers, and Matthew when with the Nevada State Police Investigation Division. So Bethany booked it. This is 3 days later and she's already in Reno, in Nevada. Interesting. I didn't realize she moved away that fast. This was a follow-up interview with Bethany related to the homicide in Moscow. I asked Bethany who had the front door code. Bethany told me the following people had the door code: Bethany, Dylan, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, Jenna, C.O. or C.C., L.M., which is the female, not the male, Hunter Johnson, Emily, and I think that's Josie. She stated the above named people were the only ones who knew the code. Bethany stated the code for the front door was the same code from the year before. I asked Bethany what the code was, and she stated it was blank. Bethany stated Maddie was the only roommate who lived in the residence the year before. Bethany stated her, Dylan, and Kaylee moved in around August 3rd, 2022. Wait, so Kaylee only lived there for 3 months? I can't say that I knew that. Bethany stated Ethan had his own apartment, but she was not sure where it was located. Bethany stated Maddie kept her same room from the year before. Maddie's room was located on the 3rd floor on the east side of the residence, next to the bathroom. I asked about Murphy's routine. Murphy was Kaylee's dog she had purchased when she was still dating Jack. Bethany stated Kaylee would primarily take Murphy out, but Maddie would also help. Bethany stated they never just left the door open because he would run away. They'd have to use a leash. Murphy would not bark that often and was very friendly. Murphy would primarily sleep in Kaylee's room, and if Kaylee was not home, he would be left in the room. He was asked about her Uber driver Maddie and Kaylee used on a regular basis. Bethany stated Kaylee knew him from other blank who used him on a regular basis. Bethany stated they would either contact the Uber driver through the app or contact him directly. She stated the Uber driver was very friendly and was always nice to everyone, and everybody trusted him. Uber driver was married, and his wife, they just had a baby. He drove a small car, possibly gray or black, but she could not tell me more about the car. It was a Prius, just so you know. I asked who in the house had a boyfriend. Xana was dating Ethan. Dylan was dating Quinn, who lived in Boise. Maddie was dating Jake, who lived in Boise. Kaylee was dating Jack, but had recently broke up with him. Kaylee was possibly hanging out with MB. Bethany stated M was Xana's big in the Greek system. Bethany stated the relationship was new and that he had never stayed over at the house, but Kaylee had stayed with him possibly more than once. Kaylee was dating a lot of people, or talking to, hooking up with. Bethany stated Kaylee was also talking to an ER, also a blank. Bethany stated she did not have a boyfriend, but did mention she was kind of hanging out with a KD, who is a blank, but they were not serious. She talks about the grub truck. I asked her if she knew a guy by the name of, I think it's Showalter. I asked Bethany who paid for the Wi-Fi. Kaylee paid for the account. She gave him the Wi-Fi name and password. I asked Bethany if she knew of anyone who had gotten asked to leave out of any of the parties that were thrown at the house. She stated 2 guys from the blank, J, H, and another guy only she knew as R, got in a fight and were told to leave. Bethany stated this fight occurred about a month before the incident at the house. I asked B about an A, C. Bethany said A used to live at the house but moved out. I asked Bethany who used the bedroom on the west end of the first floor. Bethany stated Kaylee and Maddie used the room as an office. She said Maddie and Xana worked at the Mad Greek. Maddie and Kaylee worked at home for online companies. I asked Bethany about drug use in the house. She told me Ethan and Xana both took Adderall when they drank. Bethany told me she saw Ethan and Xana both use Adderall the night before the murders. That's probably why Xana was still up on her phone. She saw Ethan take the pill, but Xana crushed it up and snorted it. She said besides the 3 or 4 noise complaints they've had, they haven't had any other problems at the house. She said Kaylee would look up registered sex offenders and one lived close to them. It says Kaylee was into crime shows. I asked Bethany about 2 other incidents where Kaylee mentioned some weird things happened. Bethany told me about an incident at Winco where a male followed her around the store, watched her check out, and then followed her to her car. But Xana was waiting in the vehicle. He was African American. It was around Halloween. Bethany told her roommates had found the door open on November 4th. At around 10:57, and they entered the house and grabbed golf clubs out of the west first floor bedroom. Bethany and the other roommates walked around the house with the golf clubs to check the house. Kaylee was not home for this incident as she had gone home for the weekend. Wind was blowing and the screws on the hinges were loose, and Xana's dad fixed it before he left that weekend. Kaylee told everyone about an incident where she saw a male watching her when she had taken Murphy out back to go to the bathroom. Bethany could not remember when this happened, but she could not provide an actual day. Bethany stated she had been at a chapter meeting at the time. Kaylee called them asking them if they were going to come home soon because she was obviously scared. Oh. And this just says, everything that we know already. The two were at this party. The other two one was at one party. Dylan was at the other. When she started drinking, which was 11:30 in the morning, they were drinking mimosas and high noons. She had some wine. They played a drinking game. They took a nap. So they were drinking all day. They went back home. They all took a nap. At about 8, they woke up and got ready for the house party. Kaylee stayed home and was not going to go to the party. Ethan and Xana came over to the party after Bethany and Maddie. Dylan did not come with the rest and walked over at a later time. Bethany stated she walked home at 1, and Dylan and LM were the only ones at the house where they were watching a movie. When Kaylee and Maddie got back, Elle left at around 2 is when Kaylee and Maddie came home. Dylan and Bethany went up to Kaylee's bedroom once they got home, which is funny. So Bethany says that Dylan and Bethany went up to Kaylee's room and they all talked, but Dylan never said she went up to Kaylee's room and they all talked. She never said that. Maddie and Bethany took Murphy outside to let him go to the bathroom. Bethany only stayed outside for a short time. When she got back into the house, she put something away in her cupboard and grabbed a bag of chips. Bethany went downstairs to bed. Bethany stated nothing was unusual about Maddie and Bethany's demeanor when they got home. Bethany stated they both appeared to be happy. She said Maddie was highly intoxicated, and it's been a long time she's seen her in that level of intoxication. She was watching a show on YouTube or on Hulu. She was watching Baby Daddy. She was watching the show. Maddie came downstairs and asked her if she had Murphy with her because she couldn't find him, which is strange because didn't they just have him outside? Bethany told her no. Bethany said her door was locked and she normally locks her door when she goes to bed. She eventually turned off the show and her iPad and went to sleep. She woke up after falling asleep to hearing what she felt was a firecracker go off, and she thought she saw a sparkler going off through the crack under her door. Bethany stated she did not know what happened. Either Bethany called Dylan or Dylan called Bethany, and Dylan stated she thought she had just seen someone dressed in all black in the house. Bethany said Xana was wearing all black. Dylan responded by saying she thought he had a ski mask on. Bethany said she didn't really know what to say to what Dylan said. Bethany admitted both her and Dylan got scared easy. Bethany even thought maybe one of Ethan's frat brothers could have been playing a joke. Bethany told Dylan to come down to her room, and Dylan ran down to her room. She tried calling Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan's phone, but nobody answered. She said it was normal for Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan not to answer if they were sleeping, and she called them late at night. Bethany looked at her phone, and it showed Bethany called Dylan at 4:19, and at 4:20, Dylan called Bethany back. During the call, Bethany asked Dylan if she heard a firecracker, and Dylan said that she did. So Dylan heard it too, which I don't think was a firecracker. I think it was a gun. She could not recall if it was during this call where Dylan was talking about seeing someone in black walking in the house. Once Bethany and Dylan were in Bethany's room together, they continued to talk about what they heard and saw. Bethany told me Dylan said the male in black was walking out the back door and they had made eye contact with each other. Bethany said Dylan said the male was white with a big nose and that he was possibly holding a small vacuum type object. Bethany said Dylan did not call 911 at the time because Bethany thought Dylan was imagining what she was talking about. Bethany stated both her and Dylan were both still drunk and they were very groggy. Bethany told me prior to hearing the firecracker, she thought she heard Murphy bark. She also heard what she thought was the beer pong table moving and cups falling. So the beer pong table was in the living room, right? So there was a struggle there. There was also blood on the wall in the living room as well. She was not sure what the sequence of events was, but she knows she heard Murphy bark, the beer pong table, and then the firecracker first before she called Dylan to see if she had heard the same thing. Bethany told me she tried calling Xana and Maddie at 4:21 and Ethan at 4:22. Bethany told me when she went to bed, she remembers most of the lights being left on inside the home. Bethany told me after trying to contact the other roommates, she fell back asleep and then woke up around 7:30 and tried calling her dad about her tooth. She called her dad again at 8 and there was no answer. I thought the whole toothache thing was just made up in that letter at the sentencing, but I guess she said it in this interview too. Took an Advil for her tooth and went back to sleep. Okie dokie, Bethany. Pissed me off that Bethany didn't show up to the dang sentencing. I'm still mad about that. And then this is just the whole Hunter thing. And that's it. What number is this? 90? Okay, we'll do the next one, which is the collection of evidence, and then I'm going to get off for the night. That's 150. Let's go to 101. Okay, so this is 101. Here we go. And it's made by Brett Payne. Excuse me. They collected a nightstand, a pink comforter, a blue blanket, pillows, mattress, bed frame, pillows, sheet, nightstand, pillows. They were all booked into evidence. I just wanted to point this one out because I thought that they got rid of the nightstands, the mattress, and the bed frames. But this shows that they actually took them and they did book them into evidence. So I just want to make that clear that I was very wrong on that because I was mad thinking they didn't take them and they did. So we're actually going to stop here at 101 and we will continue. I'll actually continue tomorrow. I will for sure be on tomorrow. I'm not sure what time yet, but there's actually not very many through from here. There's a bunch of interviews in the early hundreds, and then after 119 there's not very many, and then there's not very many from 150 to 200 either. So we'll get to probably over 200 tomorrow because there's not a whole bunch up until 200. So we'll get through that tomorrow for sure. We're at 102 right now. So we got through from 19 to 102 today. That's pretty good. I do want to make a couple of points, I think. Just so I'm not leaving you guys hanging, when I told you Pav said that there were 9 times out of the 23 times that the police said Brian Kohberger went by their house, we know, number one, he didn't go directly by their house. He was at the very least a football field away from their house at all times. He never got closer than that. But Pav said 9 of those 23 times was Brian Kohberger going to Target to buy food. And that is actually incorrect. As much as I love Pav, that number is incorrect. Do you guys want to know how many times Brian Kohberger went to Target out of those 23 times? 16. 16 of those 23 times was Brian Kohberger going to Target to purchase food. So the police saying 23 times he went by 1122 King Drive is an effing outright lie. There are receipts. They don't show the receipts, but they show the date and time of the receipt of Brian Koberger being at Target buying food, and it was 16 of those 23 times that they claimed he went by their house. They knew, they're liars, and they knew damn well 16 of those 23 he went to Target. And I think the other couple, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not going to speak on that because I'm not sure what the other few were. But gosh, it would be a whole hell of a lot different if the police said he possibly drove near their house 7 times in 16 weeks. That would sound stupid. Like, who cares? That's not stalking when they were trying to make their point. But it's not. 16 of the 23, Brian Koberger went to Target. He was not stalking them at all, which we already know because they said that. But I just wanted to let you guys know that. Okay, guys, I'm logging off for the night. If you didn't, thank you, Angie. I'm so glad you're here. It's just a bunch of like-minded people. I don't always just sit here and read stuff. I make points and do stuff like that. We're just going through the documents for right now. On the next couple days, I just want to finish these documents, and then we'll go back to going live and talking about everything. And anyways, we're just very real, and we're just very real over here. We just like-minded people, and everyone over here is super kind to everybody. Even if you have a difference of opinion, we're still kind to you. Makes for good conversation sometimes. But yep, thanks, Bianca. I appreciate you. Yep, if everybody could hit the like button, the thumbs up on the way out, I would greatly appreciate you. I hope everything has a fabulous evening. Sleeps good, please. And we will be back tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow. If you remember, when you get up tomorrow, please do something nice for yourself tomorrow. Be kind to everybody, but most importantly, be kind to your dog and all of your animals. We love you guys so much. Please be safe. Proof of what? Wait. Proof of what? Oh, you guys are talking about something else. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the times Brian Koberger went. The times Brian Koberger went to Target the 16 times. Okay, I'm not going to jump in your convo because I don't know what y'all are talking about. Anyway, thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody in here. You guys are the best. I'm going to go to sleep, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye, guys.